So today's reading is from Psalm 137, and I imagine it was written when the Jews were held captive in Babylon. Alongside Babylon's rivers, we sat on the banks. We cried and cried, remembering the good old days in Zion. Alongside the quaking aspens, we stacked our unplayed harps. That's where our captors demanded songs, sarcastic and mocking. Sing us a happy Zion song. Oh, how could we ever sing God's song in this wasteland? If I ever forget you, Jerusalem, let my fingers wither and fall off like leaves. Let my tongue swell and turn black if I fail to remember you. If I fail, O dear Jerusalem, to honor you as my greatest joy. God, remember those Edomites and remember the ruin of Jerusalem. That day they yelled out, "Wreck it, smash it to bits." And you, Babylonians, ravagers, a reward to whoever gets back at you for all you've done to us. Yes, a reward to the one who grabs your babies and smashes their heads on the rocks.
So I would like to invite all the children that are here. Yay! We've got 4 children today. Oh, have a seat. Well, no puppets today, but I have some questions for you. So maybe you can help me with some answers. So this last week, I don't know if you noticed, but maybe some of your parents, adults you've been around are kind of down or depressed or angry. Have you had that? Have you experienced that somewhat? Well, what do you do when you're depressed or angry? That's my question. Do you have any answers to that? You want to?
I'd probably go to my room and just chill till I feel better.
You go to your room? And you do that too? You go to your room until you feel better. How about you? Yeah.
Yeah, I probably just go to my room and have alone time until I feel better.
Okay, thank you. Any others you thought of? Okay.
I'd probably talk to someone about it.
Talk to someone. Good idea. Yay. Did you come up with anything? No? Yep. No. Okay. Well, I want to ask that to everybody here. What do you do when you feel depressed or angry? And some chocolate. Woo! I like that. Any others? Yes. Walk in the woods. Ice cream. Yes.
Pray about it.
Pray about it. David?
Sometimes ice cream, sometimes I scream.
So funny. So this is starting our 2nd year in Ashland, and I have to say that it's the prettiest place we've ever lived, especially in the fall. Oh my gosh, the beauty of these trees and the leaves just as you're walking that are on the ground are so beautiful. So I would have to say, for me too, that nature is where I go. Now this is actually not in Ashland. This is in Tucson, Arizona, where we lived for 12 years. But you know, beautiful, right? The colors are similar to what we see in the trees here. And then even this is another. You don't have to get a big sky. Just enjoy a flower, right? And the beauty of a flower. But like what you said too, I go to talk with people I love. So this is a painting of my husband Mike over there with our 2 dogs. It looks just like him, right? So yeah, and if he's not around, I talk to my dog. This is Sassy over here. This little Lucy's made the Rainbow Bridge, but our Sassy is always there, a loyal little friend. So when things are tough, going to others and going, like you said, in your room and thinking and praying about it and being with people that love you. So we are going to go downstairs next, and we're going to start actually making Christmas ornaments, because we're going to actually start decorating the Christmas tree on November 30th, which is soon. So let's go on down, and thank you for your answers.
When I find myself in times of trouble, Mother Mary comes to me, speaking words of wisdom, let it be. And in my hour of darkness, she is standing right in front of me. Whisper words of wisdom, let it be. Let it be, let it be, let it be, yeah, let it be. Whisper words of wisdom, let it be. When the broken-hearted people living in the world agree, there will be an answer, let it be. For though they may be parted, there is still a chance that they will see. Sing until tomorrow, let it be. Yeah, let it be, let it be. Let it be, yeah, let it be. Whisper words of wisdom, let it be. Let it be, yeah, let it be. Let it be, yeah, let it be. There will be an answer, let it be. Let it be, let it be, let it be, yeah, let it be. Whisper words of wisdom, let it be. Let it be, let it be, let it be, let it be, let it be. There will be an answer, let it be. And when the night is cloudy, there is still a light that shines on me. Shine until tomorrow, let it be. I wake up to the sound of music. Mother Mary comes to me, speaking words of wisdom, let it be.
Let us continue to pray. Dear Holy One, there's just so much that happens in our world that we don't understand, and sometimes it really hurts. And I know there are a number among us gathered here this morning that are hurting. And so we ask that you would help us navigate these feelings, that you would give us wisdom on how to travel through. Oh God, comfort us, we pray. Amen. I don't know if last week you caught some of the words that were in the reading from the letter to the Hebrews, chapter 11, that was our text last week, but there were a couple of verses that on reflection this week have really resounded inside of me and have given me a template for how to sort of cover the last few weeks I am with us in this place through the end of the year. So the theme that has grabbed me is the idea of being exiles. And we're going to look at that over the next coming weeks that I am with us, what it feels like, the experience of being exiles. And the verses from last week's reading, let me remind you if you've forgotten, verses 13 and through 16 from the letter to the Hebrews. The writer is talking about how he or she has just listed all these great people of faith that are our ancestors, Abraham and Sarah and Esther and Daniel and Jacob and Rebekah, all these people that trusted God are our ancestors in faith. And so referring to them, the writer says all these people were still living by trust, which is the same word in the Bible, faith. Faith, trust, same word, pistis. When they died, they were still trusting. They did not receive the things promised. They only saw them and welcomed them from a distance, admitting that they were foreigners and strangers on this earth. People who say such things show that they are looking for a country of their own. If they had been thinking of the country they had left, they would have had the opportunity to return and go back. Instead, they were looking for a better country, a heavenly one. Therefore, God is not ashamed to be called their God and has prepared a city for them. So those are the words that have resounded in me this week. It has reminded me again, as did the events on Tuesday, that I am an exile in a place. And I've been reading one of the most prominent Christian theologians of the latter half of the 20th century is a guy named Walter Brueggemann. And he has written quite a bit about this idea of being an exile. And he's well respected. And so I was looking into what is the experience of being an exile. And so this is the template that I'm going to be working from for the next 4 or 5 Sundays, or I guess I've got 4 more Sundays after this one that I'm with us. These are the things I want to explore, this idea of being an exile. And it'll fit right in with the lectionary readings that are given to us. But first of all, Brueggemann says, exiles must, first of all, must be allowed to express their grief and their losses, to be able to name them, to express an honest sadness, an ability to what the Bible calls lament. Now that is a massive theme in our faith tradition. It's hardly ever talked about in church. Hardly ever. But it's massive in the Bible. This sacred text that we refer to. The whole book of Exodus is a story of exile, of coming out of bondage into a place they were trying to build and hope for a better future for themselves and their children, which is a massive theme through the whole Bible. And this idea of lament, my goodness, it's all over the place. If you look, I mean, the book of Job is one long story of lament. After the prophet Jeremiah, in the Hebrew Scriptures, there's 5 lament poems called the Book of Lamentations. And this psalm that I had Ellen read this morning, by the way, I chose this in particular just for this moment. So you can't blame the lectionary on this one. I picked this Psalm 137. My goodness, is that a psalm of lament? It's an over-the-top lament. But there are a number of psalms that are psalms of lament where, and this is one of the things I love about this text we call the Bible, is it gives us the breadth of human experience. It doesn't sugarcoat anything. It doesn't cover over. It just throws the mess right out there in front of us to work through. And I love that. In fact, this is one of the things I want to say about the Bible. The Bible as we have it, 66 books. If we were Catholic, there'd be another 6 or 7 in there. But for us Protestants, 66 texts, letters and books and assemblings of poetry and songs that was amassed over about 1,000 years. And here's the crazy thing. This book that we have was written, by and large, by oppressed, marginalized, powerless people. All of the Bible it's almost unique in world literature that it is a text written by the losers, by the oppressed, by the squashed. And what has to be a tragic irony, I would say it's even heinous, is that for the last 1,800 years or so, we have taken these words of the oppressed and used them to oppress and conquer others, which is just maddening to me, that we've used these words to divide, to alienate, to shame, that were written by shamed people. It's crazy. But anyway, so this experience of exile and lament. So first of all, we have to allow the exiles to lament. And I'm going to talk about that more as I wrap it up here. But I want to give you some more elements of this template that we're going to explore in the next couple of weeks. Brueggemann also says exiles have the experience of being orphaned, feeling like we don't belong anywhere and that nowhere is safe. And that's one of the reasons why the genealogies in the Bible, all that stuff we script through, all the so-and-so begat so-and-so begat so-and-so, we just skip all that. But for exiles, that's important because that reminds us who we are. And so even coming up on Christmas, Matthew's gospel starts with this long genealogy, I think of 14 generations. And we just skip, but that's a reminder of this is where we have come from. This is who we are. It's so important when nowhere feels safe or like home, or I don't fit in. So that's part of the experience. Now the greatest threat to exiles, according to Brueggemann, is despair. And the despair is this. He writes, as long as exiles hope for nothing and are convinced of nothing unseen, that is, there's really no God, there's no help, it's all a figment, they are guaranteed that they will stay in Babylon, which is code for captivity. So as long as we believe nothing, it's guarantee that we will stay captive wherever we are. Now, another theologian I love, and I'm reading now again, is a guy named Robert Farrar Capon. He's Episcopalian. And one of his great lines, he says, the true good news is that God works in the bad news. The true good news is that God even works in the bad news. So we're going to explore that. Another experience that exiles have is the experience of a profane absence. And part of the horror of it is somehow exiles are made to feel they are responsible for what's happened to them. It's their fault. Because we did this is what happened. And so that's an experience of exiles that I hope to liberate us from in the next few weeks. And exiles fear, or they can become preoccupied with themselves. It's just us. But no one's ever felt like this. No one's had to put up, it's just me. And that's not accurate either. So those are the broad themes we're going to look at in the coming weeks to see how this could, and this is part of an authentic spirituality, is this experience of exile. And I'm going to suggest this morning that being able to lament is part of an authentic spirituality. To be able to feel the loss and the hurt. Now, some of us feel that acutely from what happened on Tuesday. An incredible loss. Dreams, hopes that we had seemed to be dashed. Of fear of what could happen to us or our loved ones if they are not of the right gender identity, race, political persuasion, or religion. There's so much that's unsettled. It felt like a punch in the gut to a number of us. Now, some of us weren't so emotionally invested in the election and figure all politicians do it and we'll survive and it'll be okay. It's not a big deal. And then there's even others that are celebrating what happened on Tuesday. And so I want to honor all that. Look, I'm not saying one's right, it's just, that's it. But for many of us in this room, it felt like a punch in the gut. And I'm aware of that. And that's why I chose this reading for this morning and fashioned this service to be about this kind of stuff. Because one of the things I learned as a hospice chaplain, if you don't allow people the time to grieve, and if you try to hurry them through, they will repress those feelings, they will suppress them, and it will arise in aberrant behavior down the road. And this is one of the geniuses, I think, of this book we call the Bible, is it allows us to express our feelings and not repress so that we don't misbehave down the road. And so it's okay to feel what we feel. Now, the psalm we had this morning that Ellen read, Psalm 137, I imagine you've never heard it read in church ever before this morning, because it's one of those things, it's like crazy Uncle so-and-so that we try to hide in the closet, let nobody ever know about it, but it's in the book. And so here we have this psalm where the people of God, God's people, have been taken captive. They've been kidnapped and hijacked. Their women were raped. Their children were murdered. What they had and cherished has been stolen from them. And they've been taken to a refugee camp in Babylon, where their captors walk around and mock them and say, hey, sing us some of your good old songs. Entertain us. What were some of the good ones back in Zion? What'd you like to hear? Entertain us. Do a dance. Do a song. They mocked them. And the feeling of the people of God was, how dare you? How could I sing of Jerusalem when I'm here in a refugee camp? And think of Jerusalem when you read texts like this, not like the specific geographical place that is in modern day Israel. Think of Jerusalem as code for like Camelot. This idealized, utopic place where everybody is equal and everybody is accepted and there's food for everybody. It was like Camelot to them. Now, whether the Jerusalem they're talking about ever existed or not, nobody knows. Probably not. But it's this idealized for the good old days. Oh, it was when the world was right. And it's been stolen and ripped from us. And so they say in their hearts, these captives in Psalm 137, I'm not going to sing for you. In fact, I'm praying that one day enemies will come and do to you what you did to us, and you will watch as your enemies take your children and dash their heads against the rocks. Now, I want to be clear, lament, at least biblically, is not revenge. So we don't go grab our enemies' children and kill them. But we feel that way. And it's okay to feel that way. But not to act on it. It is not revenge. Because I don't want to violate our own morals and ethos and what we believe to be right and good. But boy, there's times you just feel that way. I feel I got punched in the gut and it's not fair. I remember my good friend Alan Anderson, one time I was in a meeting with him and he just blurted out, why isn't God more competent? As if to say, God, where are you? How could you let this happen? Do you not hear our prayers? Does what we care for not matter to you? Where are you? It is very scriptural to feel that. Not to act on it, but to feel that is very scriptural. And so I want to allow us a time to lament as a people, to feel what we feel so that our behavior doesn't become rotten. That's the idea here. So that's enough of the theory. I want to share with you a particular example in my own life where I began to feel like I was in exile. This was in the early 1990s. And at that time, I was living in the spiritual land of charismatic Pentecostal evangelical faith. And in that land, homosexuality was considered to be a sin, an aberration, a disease, a choice that people made to be rebellious in that land. And that's the land I was living in. And while I was living there, one day, my dearest friend in all the world, a man I loved like a brother, called and said he had just gotten out of the hospital with pneumonia. Would my wife and I come down to celebrate with he and his family? So we went down, lived about 3 hours away. And when my wife and his wife went off to do shopping, yes, I know it's stereotypical, please forgive me, I'm trying, I'm learning. But they went to do the shopping for our meal. My friend and I were in his kitchen, sitting on stools like this. And he said, sit down, I got to tell you something. I said, what? He said, I got AIDS. That was a punch in the gut. In 1991, to get AIDS was really a bad thing. And I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, oh my God, how could this, and he went on to tell me, and he was staring at me the whole time, eyes fixated on me. He told me that he was a homosexual. That when he was 10 years old, he grew up Pentecostal, he was violated, molested at a church camp. And that was not the reason for his sexual identity, but it didn't help him at all. And that he had lived his whole life with a hidden duality. He had a wife and 3 teenage kids, loving man. One of the most beautiful people I've ever known in my life. I mean, I call him Petey, that's not his real name, but when Petey would come into a room, the whole room would lighten up. I mean, he loved to sing, he was funny, he was welcoming, he was he was wonderful. And he's sitting there telling me how on weekends he would slip away and let this other identity he carried come to the surface. And he got AIDS. And he's staring at me the whole time. And I have no idea what to say. I was stunned. I was devastated. This man I loved was going to die. In my whole life, in all honesty, I don't know that I have ever felt closer to Jesus than in that moment. Somehow, against all my training, grace came to me, and I was able to look at my friend and say, I love you. I got up, kissed him on the cheek. I said, we're going to go through this together. You're my brother. And that began my own exile from the land I had come from. But see, what assaulted me was here was a man that loved Jesus just as much as I do, maybe more, and he hated who he was. And I thought, how can this possibly be? And so I became an exile from my own spiritual land. Now, my friend died a horrible death. It was ugly. He had a cough he couldn't get rid of. It was just, he had no immune system to fight a cough. And so he just coughed really to death. He couldn't sing anymore. He became hoarse. He couldn't laugh. It's just this constant coughing. I was with him up until the end. I was presided at his memorial service. Afterwards, I wrote a lament for my friend Petey. So this was my lament for my friend. Where are you? as his skin tightened over his bones, and his voice, his lyrical voice, turned into that cough of departure. His voice, his life-giving laughter turned into that damned rattle of extinction. Where were you when that pipsqueak TV prophet proclaimed AIDS is your judgment on queers, faggots, and everybody not like them? Where were you as he coughed and he coughed and he coughed himself to death? Where were you? Couldn't you hear? And where are you as his wife and his kids groan the desperate cries of loss and shame? Where are you as that cold, bony hand of grief reaches into my bowels and chokes the very air from my throat? Where are you? Can't you see? And yet, the third day cometh when I will trust you once again. So, my friends, I invite us to explore the feelings of being exiles, because we are. We live in a world where we just don't fit. And even if we do, it won't last because it's all impermanent and it'll change, even if we find a place. But we need to continue working for that world because it's a good thing to do. It's a good thing to work for a world where there is justice and acceptance and tolerance and embrace of humanity, of our goodness and our badness and our craziness and our joyousness. That's what exiles do. And we're in exile together. And so this is the journey we're going to go on for the next few weeks, if you want to come. Amen.